Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Welcome to another edition of our Wednesday Roundtable at Lido. Pag-uusapan natin yung ating aviation industry. How are we today? Considering the fact that we've been beset with problems brought by COVID-19. Halos standstill ang ating economy. Pero let me just refresh the younger members of the media with us today. You know, there was a time when I traveled to Legazpi on board my own limited special train. Pag walang train, I would take the plane. And I still recall, doon sa Terminal 4 ngayon, it used to be the domestic terminal, tatlong eroplano yung magkakatabi. Isang Philippine Airlines, isang Air Manila, at isang Filipinas Orient Airways. Na ang destination, Legazpi City rin. Parang nasa isang terminal ka ng jeep at lalakad na. Parang gano'n. Pero hindi naman lakad puno. Kung ano yung schedule, yun na nasusunod. And then came, naging Philippine Airlines na lang. At hindi nagtagal, nagkaroon naman ng tinatawag na Grand Air. Nakasakay din ako doon sa Grand Air. And then, naging Philippine Airlines, may Cebu Pacific, at meron ng Air Asia. So, maganda ang takbo. Kaya lang, ang problema, nagkaroon ng COVID-19. So, ano na yung sitwasyon? So, ngayon pong umagang ito, may mga inanyayahan po kaming mga resource persons na magbibigay ng kanilang pananaw kung gaano ba tayo apektado nitong tinatawag nating COVID-19. Kahapon po, doon sa press briefing sa Malacanang, natanong ko si Secretary Tugade kung anong kinabukasan ng aviation industry. Pero motherhood statements yung kanya nabanggit. Ang sabi niya, the government is mandated to keep the aviation industry afloat. So, okay. Hindi niya pinaliwanag kung paano. So, ngayong umaga, kasama po natin mga kaibigan, si dating Secretary Narsalina Lim ng Department of Tourism. Kasama rin natin si Ginoong Bobby Cole Lim, Executive Director ng Air Carriers Association of the Philippines. Si Ka Eddie Monreal, na General Manager ng Manila International Airport Authority. At si Ambassador Benedict Rico ng Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Let's start. Siguro initial opening statements mula sa industriya. Bobby, tell us more. Ano ang sitwasyon ng inyong industriya?
Magandang umaga, no? And thank you for this invitation, Mel. I think ang first order of the day is to give an update on the resumption of flights for the domestic sector. So, yun ay binubuno pa din namin. We had already applied last week. We submitted our flight schedules so that it can be approved by the IATF. But we understand that the IATF has to look at this matter beyond the air transport and consider also the requirements of the LGUs, no? Because obviously the LGUs are closer to the grounds and they have a better feel of the public health situation in their respective communities. So there are some communities that are more open, the others are more closed, even though they are on GCQ. No? So wala pa masyadong clarity kung ano ba talaga ang mga requirements ng LGU. And we would like sana magkaroon ng uniform policy so that it's not only the airlines but the passengers will know what are the requirements for them to travel. In Cebu, if I may give an example, ang nire-require nila travel pass. Now, a travel pass is you go to your barangay or city, you visit the COVID task force and you ask for the travel pass. And the process is very cumbersome because they have to communicate to the LGU in the point of destination and get the clearance of that LGU. Kung pupunta kang Bacolod or Iloilo. Only after that is secured will the LGU where you applied for clearance give you the travel pass. So we know in Cebu that is the requirement as of now. Yung mga ibang city, it is unclear. Yung mga ibang city, they're saying, although they are GCQ, they still don't want passenger air transport. So we hope this is clarified by the airport authorities, Mactan, Kaap, Clark, so that the air carriers of the Philippines providing domestic transport can already resume because we have already submitted our flight schedules and we are ready to fly since June 1. No? So maybe in a few days, we will have more clarity on this and we can connect the islands. No? Kasi hindi lang domestic tourism ang sinaserve natin dito. It is really domestic travel. And when we talk of domestic travel, it's really the businessmen, the professionals, the technicians that need to travel, no? So that trade and commerce can continue, no? And we know very well that the air transport is a vital artery that serves and spurs economic activity and development. So that's now. That's the first point that I'd like to stress. Can't hear you, Mel. Mel, we can't hear you.
All right. Let's try si GM Ed Monria. Nasa kabilang linya na. Oops, may kausap pa yata sa telepono. GM, good morning. GM, good morning. Magandang umaga po. Morning, GM.
Sorry. Good morning, Melo. Good morning, sir.
Yes. Welcome to our program. Can you please tell us how prepared is NAIA sa pagsisimula ng mga biyahe? Yes, GM.
Well, if we talk about preparedness, that would be two things. One, preparing for the terminal. The terminal per se, we're prepared. We have the capacity. We have people manning it that used to man them before.
Sorts of things. Second is preparedness in relation to biosecurity and in handling
we are prepared as well. In fact, there are a number of layers of biosecurity that we have implemented that's now in place, which we expect that the airline should follow, and likewise all the stakeholders, including the employees and all those stuff. If you will allow me, probably I can run down some of the steps and procedures that are currently in place.
Yes, please.
Okay. For we call it the new normal. Everybody calls it as new normal. Before entering the area, meaning the checkpoint, before reaching the checkpoint, there is a thermal scanning of all people going into the terminal. Okay. Upon arrival, but may I just also add that only passengers and drivers are allowed to go in and bring passengers up to the departure level. I'm talking about the departure.
Mm-hmm.
Upon entering, we have markers. The passengers are expected to follow strict social distancing. It was also a mandatory requirement that passengers and all, even the employees, should wear masks. No mask, no entry. So upon entering the terminal, temperature check is again done to make sure that we don't miss anybody who's not feeling well and should follow the health protocol. We have, upon entering, it's under the OTS. OTS will also implement less contact, meaning as much as possible, they will not do risking, but they will use other means under OTS. They will use other means of security checks to ensure the safety and security of the bags and the passengers.
Mm-hmm.
Into the check-in hall, we have also indicated markers for social distancing, which are very much visible. At check-in, we have barriers, meaning acrylic barriers to separate the passenger and the airline representative to ensure that social distancing is as well implemented. Um, while on queue, social distancing is likewise also being enforced. We encourage passengers to use online check-in instead to minimize contact or interaction with people, which the airline should implement as well, which they're going to use their own equipments. If we're referring to the domestic flight, similarly, OTS will implement the less contact when you go through the final check. And at the gate, similarly, airlines with the cooperation of the airlines, they will also do another health protocol. Some airlines will do another thermal check, and then they board. We also suggested that when the flights are delayed, specifically meaning maybe an hour or so, that passengers are subjected to another thermal check, so that in case people or some passengers try to avoid or circumvent the process by taking some paracetamol, I'm sure after 3 hours or so, the effect of that paracetamol is already out. So that's those things that are being implemented right now as regards to the airport handling. But we are ready in terms of operations.
Yeah. Sa ganito po pagkakataon, GM, will it require more people from your end to observe all these standards?
I don't think so at the moment, because we're talking about less volume. Because I'm sure other airlines are not yet into a full capacity, so they're just operating several flights. So basically, what we have is just enough, or even more than enough.
Okay. What about the length of time of people going to the airport? Pag peak season kasi minsan 3 to 4 hours, no?
Well, I still maintain the same hour, 3 hours for international, 2.5 hours for domestic, because the more time that they will be lingering or milling around the terminal, the more exposure and the more crowd that we have to police, and it will add to congestion. But some airlines are having their own different protocols in terms of asking passengers to be at the airport. So I personally do not suggest that, because there's no other additional process that is being implemented in between. So me personally, coming from operations and from experience, I don't see yet the need. Asking them to come much earlier will even congest or even add to the congestion if there is a congestion at the terminals.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, GM. Sandali po. Tunghayan natin kung anong pananaw ni dating Secretary Narcelina Lim tungkol po naman sa ating industriya ng aviation. Yes, Madam. Good morning and welcome. Secretary Nars. Yes, please. How do you look at the current conditions, Madam? Oops. Teka, i-unmute natin. All right. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes.
But of course, aviation is very important to the success of our tourism program. But I think that for now, we do not yet see the end of this pandemic. So we cannot really plan. When I say we, the tourism industry cannot really plan properly, no? So for example, as Bobby mentioned earlier, the airlines started selling tickets for domestic flights, not necessarily for leisure, but for discretionary, non-discretionary travel. But some of the LGUs are saying that they will only be ready in September because they are still building their testing centers, their COVID testing centers. They are dry running the new protocols. Not all the hotels and resorts have come up to the standards of DOT and Department of Health. They still have to be issued a certificate of operations by DOT. Can you imagine how many inspection teams DOT will have to field to make sure that the accommodation sector is ready, no? So Boracay, Bohol, Siargao, and I think Baguio all said come back in September because we are not ready to receive the flights. So you can imagine also the airlines are having a difficult time projecting when they can mount the flights and also start the recovery program. So it's a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah.
So I think the OT had announced that they would like to pilot a domestic tourism campaign in September. Well, I hope that by that time, whatever destination they choose for that pilot program will really be ready, no?
Yeah. Okay. At least yung protocols pare-pareho. Ano po?
Well, the LGUs, as Bobby mentioned, which I find very cumbersome, the LGU has to consent for the airline to fly to their destination. So I don't know whether the airlines will have to approach the LGUs one by one or this will be done by the national government. It's not clear to me who will do the coordination with the LGUs when they will be ready to receive the airlines.
Okay. Ano po ang tingin ng ating mga kasama mula sa Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry? Yes, Master Benedict Uvico, please. Okay.
Good morning, Melo. Can you hear?
Yes, of course. Good morning. How do you look at the problems we have today?
Well, first of all, yung aviation in general is important sa business and trade, no? There are a number of dimensions, if I may, sa aviation, yung passenger and freight, for example. That's one dimension, yung local versus international. Tapos meron pang allied services under aviation. But let me focus on what is very important for business and trade. Alam mo, yung logistics, we use air freight a lot. And in fact, nakita natin during this pandemic that a lot of the very important equipment na kailangan natin, whether ventilator, masks, and other important things that we need for survival dun sa mga pasyente ng hospital, dumarating by air freight. So this is very important to us na we are able to support all of the incoming and as well as outgoing. It's not only because of the pandemic, that's why air freight is important. A lot of our imports and exports are actually coming in by air freight. Sa electronics, for example, they totally depend on air freight, both incoming and outgoing. So it is really important that from a logistics standpoint, that we have smooth cargo handling, regular flights coming in, because all of this will help towards the early reopening and recovery of our economy. Ngayon, dun sa passenger aspect, we don't know. Of course, nahirapan ang our members involved in air transport. And then, as a consequence, yung mga members namin that are involved in the hotel industry and other industries related to travel. But that's a more complicated issue, Melo, because it's not really only whether the flights are available to go on vacation, incoming or outgoing. There's an issue of consumer confidence that has to return for the airline industry, at least for the passengers, to get back on flights and either go international or domestic. So bottom line, very important for us right now is yung sa business and trade, yung cargo. For future, very important ang aviation because a lot of our economy really depends on travelers coming in and out. And not to mention all our deployment, incoming and outgoing overseas foreign workers.
Yeah.
That's our take, Melo.
Okay. Ano kaya ang sitwasyon? GM, Ed?
Yes. Yeah.
GM, can you please tell us, ano po ang inyong SOP doon sa mga padating ng mga pasahero. Yes, please.
Okay. Currently, since the start that we have an ECQ sometime, when was that?
March 16.
March 16. There was the inbound was not really that much because the repatriation was not yet in full swing. However, during the days that came, we noticed that the buildup of repatriation increased. So National Task Force, including IATF, set a cap in terms of inbound passengers. That's primarily because at that point, they felt that the quarantine facilities choked up, meaning mas marami yung na dumarating as opposed to those being certified as negative. Because at that time, the passengers inbound were just using rapid test, which requires at least 14 days before they can be cleared or the results can come out. So after that they came out with that restriction, and the process was changed to RT-PCR, which is shorter in terms of results and more dependable. So it's taking them at least 3 days or more, or slightly 3 days to come up with results. Thus, doing that, decongesting the quarantine facilities, which is now ongoing. So basically, in short, what I'm trying to say, there's still a cap for international inbound passengers, only for Filipinos and those who are exempted by the protocol set forth by immigration. So ngayon, meron ho tayong cap sa ngayon, and we cannot just open up because of the sheer demand of the repatriating nationals.
GM, let me ask you this. There's been this item na umiikot sa social media about a certain airline flying to Wuhan and returning to Manila. Would you have anything to say about it? Is there really truth to it?
Well, there's truth and not true in that kind of news. First off, since the start, we never banned flights. What we banned were passengers inbound. Okay. On that particular social media news, yes, there was an arrival from Wuhan, but it was a cargo flight. It was not intended for passengers coming in, because ever since, passengers from Wuhan were never allowed since the lockdown. So please, I just want to put an end to this, although it's not within my turf, but it is not an airline bringing in passengers.
Yeah.
It's basically an airline bringing in cargo, which is not restricted.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the clarification. I don't know about the cargos. Bobby, magkaroon ba ng pagbagsak yung cargos na pumapasok sa Pilipinas because of the lockdown? Logistics yung binabanggit ni Ambassador Benedict Uwito.
What's the question, Melo?
Bumaba ba yung bilang ng mga freight na dinadala ng mga eroplano because of the lockdown?
Yes. I mean, there's practically no operation by the airlines during these past 2 months, 2.5 months.
May I interject on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to probably put some context to it. Cargo were not been restricted. In fact, most of the airlines coming in, international carriers for that matter, are coming in, bringing in cargo without passengers, but outgoing, they're also bringing in cargo and passengers. So me personally, the cargo, even the domestic and the international, we're still around. We still have high demands on those.
Yeah, but definitely because of the lockdown, bumaba rin yung demand. Ganun nga po ba yun?
I don't think so, because commerce, the shipments that are being brought by these airlines are still required, and the demand is still there. Maybe slightly, because we can experience even those delivery or yung mga Shopee or whatever. It takes a while before these deliveries are effected, but that doesn't say that the demand is less.
Yeah. Okay, Bobby? Your reaction, please.
Well, most of the airlines have grounded their aircraft,
Uh-huh.
so there's hardly any flight to and from the Philippines and other countries. No?
Okay.
That I think is the general situation that the Philippines and other countries are facing.
Okay. Bobby, let me ask you.
There are some carriers that have dedicated air freighters, no? And the big
Uh-huh.
ones are, for example, Cathay and Korean and Singapore.
Uh-huh.
But even those countries with large cargo freighters have grounded their aircraft because the overall global demand has simply dried up.
Okay. So, looking at the current situation, do you see any salvation for your industry?
Yes, I mean, number one, I think this is temporary, no? I think that's the starting assumption.
Okay.
But what is temporary is also linked to the discovery of a vaccine. There are now more information that's coming out on an estimated time of its maybe finalization. But even if a vaccine is discovered, there is still the period of production and the period of distribution all over the world. So it may take at least what 18 months for this to become available. Now, from the point of view of the airlines, ACAP Airlines, the earlier we're able to start flying, the earlier we can begin the recovery. Because if you're able to fly, you're able to generate revenue. If you're able to generate revenue, you are able to pay your fixed costs. And our fixed cost is 7 billion pesos a month. Without any revenue, you have to get that somewhere to pay those fixed costs. For example, aircraft lessors, no? All airlines have been telling their aircraft lessors to give them forbearance,
Okay.
give them time to pay. But as aircraft lessors, like any creditor, they can only wait for so long before they actually impose more stringent requirements. During this period, the interest is accumulating. Now, the other areas where you can cut down, of course, is in terms of your employment. Because, most of the airlines have kept their employees on board, except for those that are probationary.
Uh-huh.
No? But directly with the airline, employed by the airline, and closely affiliates, there would be about 25,000.
Really?
Yes. But if you now connect the aviation ecosystem, where you have medium and small scale businesses that are connected to the air transport industry, such as catering, janitorial services, other maintenance companies, that goes to about easily hundreds of thousands.
Really?
And then if you add now the dependencies of the travel and trade industry, easily that goes again, the multiple just goes up because travel agencies, hotels, and all those that support the service hospitality sector heavily depend on the airline.
Okay.
It just is inherent in our economy because we are archipelagic. So you have tourism that contributes 12.7% of GDP, that employs directly or indirectly 5.4 million people. The air transport contributes 3.4% of GDP and employs roughly directly or indirectly 1.2. All of its ecosystem is dependent on this twin industry, tourism, travel, and air transport.
Okay.
That's why I think both industries have lobbied with Congress to be included in the stimuli bill.
Okay. Will you be asking for some benefits from the government?
Yes.
Will you be asking for subsidies?
Well, what we have asked for, the local carriers, is really, number one, to help us deal with liquidity. Liquidity is the problem. We don't have cash. We cannot even access the credit line, the pre-existing credit lines that we have and that are properly secured by collaterals.
Okay.
Understandably, the private banks are skittish about opening these credit facilities because they see that the airlines are not generating any revenue.
Yes.
And any banker would behave that way. So we have asked government if they can break this crisis of confidence and provide credit guarantees as an interim measure. You know, a simple credit guarantee scheme with give confidence to the banks to open the taps, the lending taps.
Okay.
Ultimately, the airlines are going to pay for this anyway, and they are secured.
Okay.
And then the other things that we've asked would be, of course, credit facilities so that we can, you know, in the coming months,
Okay.
manage the cash flow and waiver of navigational fees. This is from Manila International Airport, Civil Aviation Authority, Mactan, and this amounts to roughly about 500 million a month. So
Really?
any waiver of these navigational charges for at least 6 months would be a big help, no, for the domestic carriers.
Okay. But with the new norm, like you have social distancing, do you think it will still be viable for a 737 to fly to Legazpi with just 50% of the passenger load factor?
At 50%, it will not be viable.
So you'll have to increase fares.
That would not, the entire business model will have to change. It's just like the restaurants, they are only allowed to operate at 50% sitting capacity.
Okay.
So that's these two industries face the same dilemma. How do you continue operating dine-in restaurants, or do you just limit yourself to takeaway and deliveries? Now, for the airlines, number one, is it necessary to limit it to a 50% capacity? ICAO and IATA. Recently, ICAO has, you know, this is the UN body dedicated to international civil aviation. They have come up with a roadmap to recovery, and they do not prescribe a 50% limitation in seat capacity. Their recommendation is that when necessary and when applicable, airlines would, of course, observe the proper social distancing.
Okay.
So they are trying to balance the issue of safety with economics. Now, when it comes naman to the issue of safety, the ICAO and the airline industry and IATA believe that the biosecurity measures that are already in place, you know, from the time that you get out of your car, you are already subjected to so many biosecurity measures.
Yes.
Wearing the
That's
mask,
totally okay.
all of that, right?
Yes.
And then when you enter the aircraft, you know, you have again protocols of sanitation, disinfection,
Yes.
and
Okay.
even the movement of people is minimized.
Okay.
And then you have the technology. You know, you have HEPA filters that actually capture these viruses. Now, while in flight, you know, every few minutes you have fresh air, and that fresh air will go through these HEPA filters. So that it removes, actually, this technology mimics the hygienic condition of an operating room in a hospital.
Okay.
And then the direction of the air that comes out from the cabin is from top to bottom. You have air coming from the from the overhead bin.
Yes.
It's pushed down and it
Okay.
is sucked by the air system on the floor.
All
So
right.
it minimizes the flow of air, you know, from front to back.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so we believe that at ICAO and the IATA believe that this combination of this risk approach, biosecurity measures, will make aviation pretty safe, no? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, may I just stress that in aviation, even before the COVID pandemic, already has a culture of safety that is already ingrained in the industry. There are redundancy systems that is in place when you are in flight. The systems that are adopted to protect the airport complex, the airlines, the processes. It's all
Okay.
ingrained in the aviation personnel to have a culture of safety. And you're merely adding now public health. So it can easily fit into the culture of safety,
Okay.
protect the riding public.
Yeah. Ambassador, yung bang airline industry kasama doon sa PESA?
Yes, in general, merong provision doon sa PESA on large companies. So there are, in fact, discussions regarding how to include them in, as Mr. Lee mentioned, the possible government guarantees to secure the credits that they would need during this transitory period. Nandiyan yan. That's why PESA has to get past this session because it's not just the airline industry, pero kasama sila dyan. But the whole country actually depends on this. So we do need to work on this, and the session will end this Friday. If they do not pass this, we have to wait another month before they resume, assuming that there's not going to be a special session called. So I hope our legislators, for the sake of the country, for the sake of us being able to restart our economy, I hope that they will actually pass the PESA bill this session.
Yeah.
Important for everybody and important for our people so that they can get back to work as well.
Very good. GM? Yes, GM?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you please tell us kung ano po yung mga steps na gagawin natin para matiyak na ligtas yung ating paglalakbay?
Test in what way?
Ano yung mga efforts natin para masabi na ligtas ang paglalakbay? You have your biosecurity, tapos yung mga eroplano naman, malinis din. Would you have enough people to check the airlines pag nakaparada na sa airports natin?
Well, in terms of sanitizing airlines or on the side of the airline, we leave it up to the airlines to handle. In fact, that's very clear that it's a tandem between the authorities, not only MIA, but CAAP, and likewise, especially the local operators. As explained by Bobby earlier, we have the layers of biosecurity is quite safe, meaning, in fact, I just want to deal with the HEPA filters. The HEPA filters are the most sort of, how do you call it, safest filters around. In fact, I agree with Bob that even the air inside the aircraft is the most safest air that you can breathe because of these HEPA filters. But what is important here is the passenger confidence. In spite of, even though we tell them, we come out that we have enough and all this are secured, it still basically goes to the bottom line of passenger confidence. We have to regain them, and then so that the commerce and the travel will go back. But once we don't have that, it will take a little while. First off, I think with this experience, the travel has been set aside, meaning just like us right now, in spite of us facing face-to-face, we're using Zoom. In the same manner, even the conglomerates doing business, traveling business to other parts of the world, may even consider doing this as their normal way of conferencing or visiting or even evaluating their foreign companies or even local other companies in the other regions. It's more economical. I'm sorry to say this. It's more economical, and you achieve the same result. So it will definitely take a while. My personal perspective, it will take a little while. We have to really invest on convincing passengers that this thing is basically safe in terms of their travel.
Yeah. Secretary Nars, how long will it take for people to have that confidence? Secretary Narsalina Lim, please. Gaano katagal po para bumalik yung confidence ng mga maglalakbay? Yes, ma'am? Oh, sandali po. Let's try again. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
You're asking how long will consumer confidence go back?
Yes.
That's very difficult. It's psychological, no? Now, the important thing is that after this easing down of the ECQ, we don't have a second wave. That's one indicator. Number two, if the consumer sees that the public health system in the LGUs is strong, they have testing capabilities, they have the hospitals and the health workers, and they see that all the accommodations and the attractions have the health protocols in place, that might give them confidence to travel again. But how long will the LGUs take to strengthen their public health systems is another question. No? So, anybody's guess, Melo.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to ask Bobby Lim, my friend Bobby Lim. Bobby,
Yes.
Yes, Bobby.
in case this uncertainty extends beyond September, the LGU said, come back to us in September, we'll be ready to receive domestic flights. In case it extends beyond that, will the airlines be able to survive with their planes grounded?
Bobby.
Well, you know, the airlines will have to be a smaller airline, no, in the future. I think in the coming months, because we do not see demand coming to pre-COVID levels for a couple of years. Actually, if you follow the IATA projection, they are saying that it will take 3 years before the
Yeah.
full demand, the 2019 levels of demand are achieved again on a global basis. So
I
obviously,
think Ayata said 2023.
yes. So if these are based on projections using current available facts. So once the vaccine comes, I think the restoration of confidence will come in.
Yeah.
So for
Bobby,
your
when you
question,
say
yes.
smaller airlines, you need to say the fleet will be reduced. What do
Because,
you mean by smaller airlines?
well, I think you
Lesser number of aircraft on the fleet?
yeah, generally airlines will become smaller. That is going to be the trend because you will
Really?
have an excess of aircraft that will have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if 90% of Philippine destinations domestically are not open to air transport, that can only mean that the aircrafts will have to, most of them will have to remain on ground.
Wow.
Now, alternatively, you can look forward to international aviation, but you are also dependent on the individual policies of the foreign countries with respect to opening their borders and removing the travel bans and restrictions.
Okay.
So it's a question of timing. September that means that's 3 months, 4 months from now. I think that would be a very, very difficult situation if you have no domestic aviation in the Philippines. Not only for tourism, but also for trade and commerce.
Yeah. You know,
Because we are an island nation, we really need aviation for trade and commerce.
yeah. I recall merong nakatakdang Asian Development Bank Governors Meeting sa Incheon sa South Korea. And they asked if media men would like to witness the event. I said, I'd like to see the place. I'd like to attend the conference. And then COVID-19 came and they said, okay, September na lang yung convention. Pero just the same, I'm having doubts whether it would be worth the risk to fly to Korea and attend a conference because we're not even sure kung ano mangyayari. So maybe it's not only limited to my view, but to others as well. We'd like to open the floor to our colleagues from media who may have questions. Jerome Morales of Reuters. Jerome, where are you? Jerome, go ahead with your question. Jerome, yes? Go ahead. Go ahead, Jerome. Oops. Nawala si
Hello,
Jerome.
sir. Hello, hello. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, sir.
go ahead, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Para kanino yung tanong?
Yes. Good morning for Mr. Lim and Mr. Sir Ed of NIA. Thank you for attending this press conference. Sir, just a bit another topic. Storm season is coming real soon, and there's this new dilemma among insurers, among airlines that because of the large number of park planes, there's this dilemma that they'll be having extra challenges right now with lots of park planes, and then storm season coming in. So any concerns right now from the industry? What's the industry doing? What's the protocols? And of course for the NAIA as well, how prepared are we, and how many aircraft are parked there long term? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with NAIA. Yes, GM Ed.
Well, yeah, thank you for that question. Even prior COVID, we have these challenges when the storm comes or hits the aerodrome. As a matter of practice, or as an SOP by the airlines, they have designated areas where the typhoon track is going. So we have alternative airports where they can evacuate the aircraft. In fact, just to address specifically that question, that has been already talked about during our meeting with CAAP. And airlines were asking what will be the arrangement that they can do. And the CAAP gave them options where to park this aircraft that will be evacuated. So whatever protocols that is being implemented prior to this situation will still be implemented when storm or typhoon season comes to us this time.
Okay. Yes, Bobby, from your end, from the industry. Yes.
Yeah, I mean our operations people are looking at this, and this is an activity that is done in close coordination with the airports, and of course it is dependent on the path of typhoons. Fortunately, we have alternative airports if it is needed to be used. Aircrafts can be relocated to Clark, or it can be relocated to Cebu and other provincial airports. No? This has happened before, but it must be a pretty strong typhoon that directly hits Manila to really require relocating them. No? That's what I can say at the moment. No, the other operational details are really subject to the circumstances of the case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I recall.
So it's business as usual, sir. Despite
Yeah, Jerome. Sige.
yeah, so it's business as usual despite this dilemma of lots of parked planes, grounded planes right now.
Business as usual. Bobby?
Is there a question?
Yes. So parang lumalabas daw na business as usual lang kahit maraming nakaparadang mga eroplano.
No, the planes are parked, but they're not flying.
Uh-huh.
So you need to follow. It's not as simple as that, because the aircraft manufacturers, Airbus and Boeing, have mandatory steps of how to preserve the plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's you need to keep them close. You need to preserve them. There are preservative measures that have to be undertaken, and in preparation for the resumption of flights, another set of steps and procedures have to be undertaken by an airline operator, following the manufacturer's detailed set of instructions. No? So when you say business as usual, I don't exactly understand what you mean by that. No? They are parked. They undergo a lot of preservative work in preparation for domestic resumption of flight. Some of them have already been prepped up, no, to fly again.
All right.
May,
Thank you, sir.
excuse
Thank
me, Melo?
Yes,
Melo,
ma'am.
may I ask?
Yes,
Bobby,
ma'am.
are the pilots on standby, on call anytime they need to transfer the aircraft to PAL, for example, if you have to decongest the terminal, the airport?
Yes, the operations department manage this matter. In fact, there are training programs that pilots have to undergo to keep the currency of their license. So again, the airlines are in close coordination with the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines that regulates the pilot licenses.
Okay. Okay. I hope that answers the question. I recall there was a signal number 1 some years ago. Hindi pinalipad yung eroplano. So sabi, tatawagan na lang kami kung may biyahe na. So nag-signal number 2 on a Saturday. Ang sabi, wala pa rin. Pero nagulat ako, midnight, ang sabi, may biyahe on a Sunday. And it was signal number 3. So sabi ko, I have to go home really to Bicol. So I took the plane, all right. Nakarating ako ng Legazpi matapos kuming bayuhin ng hangin. Pero I don't know whether this is an acceptable practice, GM. Ganun ba yun? Get the planes out of Manila.
Well, the decision to fly is basically depending on the airline. Depends on the evaluation of the forecast. Because each aircraft have their own limitations. So when the flight operations feel that the prevailing condition is still within the prescribed normal limits, they will decide. And at the end of the day, the captain will not fly an aircraft if he feels that he's not confident flying it. So at the end of the day, even flight operations feel that it's within normal limits. Once the captain decides that no, I don't think so, the captain's decision will prevail because he's the one in charge of the aircraft.
Yes, okay. Cedric Castillo, yes, Cedric. Cedric. Yes, go ahead with your question. Cedric. Asan na si Cedric? Go ahead. Nawala. Si Air Traveler muna. Air Traveler, good morning and welcome to our forum. Go ahead with your question. Oops, nawawala. Okay. Ano po ang nakikita niyong kinabukasan natin?
There.
Yeah. Okay. Who's this?
Hello, yeah. Yeah, this is Raymond Ortiz from airtravelerph.com.
Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, this is for Bobby Lim actually. Bobby, I'd just like to ask, because I understand that there are roughly around 60 more aircraft for delivery to the airlines, particularly to Cebu Pacific. I believe that they still have a pending order of 56 aircraft, which include A330-900 NEOs. You have PAL with I think a few more A321 Neo SR versions and so on. How will the airlines now be handling these aircraft orders given this
Condition.
crisis?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Bobby.
Yeah, well, normally you talk to your manufacturers and postpone delivery. And all over the world, that is being dealt with by these two major manufacturers. Have to delay delivery.
Okay.
And there will be, of course, financial consequences to the airlines because maybe mitigated at some point in time because of the effects of force majeure. But beyond a certain period of time, those penalties will kick in.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a question of negotiation between each carrier and the manufacturer.
Okay.
So again, those planes that were based on certain revenue forecasts, based on certain growth assumptions. All of those assumptions have changed.
Yes.
So, and certainly it is a smaller world for the airlines and for tourism, at least temporarily. So everybody is really adjusting to this so-called new normal.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
any follow-up? Okay, Gerard de la Peña. Gerard?
Good morning, everyone. My question is for GM Ed Monreal. Hi, GM. Good morning po.
Hi, good morning, Gerard.
Yes,
Good morning.
ang tanong ko po, GM, ngayon pong nagbalik na po yung operations ng domestic flights natin. Kamusta po ang sitwasyon sa airport? Kasi kanina po may mga nakitang mahabang pila rin po sa, I think sa Terminal 3 po yun.
Well, yes, they are based on the press release of Cebu Pacific. I think there are mounting 3 flights today, starting this morning, I think, if I recall the advisory correctly. It's going to Jensan, one going to Naga, and another one to Cagayan de Oro. Yes, there were lines earlier, primarily because passengers came all together, and that line has been addressed already, as been reported to me. Normal operations. So with those 3 flights, just about roughly lagay natin sa 200, which is way over the capacity of a domestic carrier. With 600, we're all okay. We'll be able to handle that swiftly.
Follow up lang po, GM. Once na mag-start na rin po mag-operate yung domestic operations ng PAL and AirAsia, paano po natin may ensure ang social distancing sa paliparan?
Okay, thank you for that question. The reason why we're opening T2, T3 as well for domestic is primarily because we want to ensure that social distancing protocols are implemented. For Terminal 3, we thought it wise that it should be used by Cebu Pacific, SEBCO, AirAsia, and if there will be some small airlines that would like to operate, maybe we'll be able to accommodate them. T2 will be basically for Philippine Airlines domestic operation, because right now T2 is being used as a repatriation flight for international chartered flights. Likewise, that's also being used as a terminal for super flights, which is being done right now because of the OFW that are wanting to go home. So commercially, on the far end of the terminal, we'll be using it for Philippine Airlines operation. But those things are very fluid in terms of assignments. We will evaluate that on a day-to-day depending on the demand. That's the reason why we asked airlines to submit to us beforehand their planned operations specifically for domestic, so that we will be able to slot them. It will not be the same as before, that we accommodate 760 flights per day on 22 hours basis. The demand right now is very much very low, probably 20% the most. So 20% of the 700 is likewise about 140 flights spread throughout the day. That's what we're going to do, so that this social distancing will be implemented for both departure and arrival.
Okay.
Last na, Sir Melo, last na po. Ano po ang aasahan ng mga passengers na may flights going to the provinces? Any reminders po sa kanila?
Ano raw po yung reminders niyo doon sa mga pasahero? GM.
Ako? I'm sorry. I thought it was for Babilim. I'm sorry about that.
GM, yun po, any reminders po sa mga passengers? Ano po ang aasahan po nila kung sila po may flight at pupunta po sila sa NAIA?
Okay. Unang-una ho, bago sila dumating at pumunta sa flights nila, I would suggest that the day before, they call the airlines. They call the airlines to check whether the flights are definitely leaving, because these schedules are subject to change without prior notice. Yun po ang kulatilya na binibigay ng mga airlines. Tanong muna kung tutuloy ho. Pag sinabing tutuloy, at least 3 hours the most, they should be at the airport. They should follow the protocols that is being set forth. One is from the transportation protocols, which is very limited hindi pwedeng isang barangay as used before, isang pasahero umaalis ay isang van ang nag-aattend. Bawal na ho yun, hindi natin pwedeng encourage yun. Again, last and finally, discipline. I would like to solicit the highest discipline protocol so that we'll be able to properly implement what is necessary to ensure them that they will be at least, not say 100% COVID-free, but we will be able to minimize the exposure of the passengers.
Yeah, thank you. Warren de Guzman, yes, go. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have just two questions. First for Sir Monreal. Sir, regarding earlier you mentioned that there are still some limits as to the repatriation for OFWs, but we know that a lot of these OFWs are really waiting to come home. They've been spending a lot of money to rebook their flights. So kailan po kaya nila malalaman na tama na yung panahon para mag-rebook, para matuloy na sila pauwi?
Well, to address your question, MIA is just following the guidance from NTF and IATF. Once the limit is lifted, we'll be glad to accept them. But there's some restriction that's currently being implemented. I cannot answer as to when, because we just follow orders or instruction from IATF and NTF.
So indefinite pa po, no? The next question, sir, is for you and for Mr. Bobby Lim and for PCCI. The jobs data for April is coming out on Friday. Do you think that the possible retrenchment from your sectors or the sectors allied with travel will already be reflected in that data, or do you think it will be reflected at a later time? So in other words, are we going to see a lot of job losses from aviation, from travel in the April data that's coming out on Friday?
Yes, siguro kay Bobby.
Yes. Well, based on my information, no, for April, the airlines have April and May. April, as of today, information that I have is that the regular employees of the airlines are still intact. No? They have come up with a variety of ways to serve the jobs and employment of the regular employees. Advancing the payment of certain month leave without pay. Those are the techniques. Some have gone on leave without pay also. So it's a combination of these techniques allowed under the labor code to keep them intact.
Mm-hmm.
From PCCI, the allied industries to travel, Ambassador Yuiko.
Ambassador? Saan si Ambassador Yuiko? Uy. Has he logged out? Ambassador? Ambassador Yuiko? Uy. Ambassador? Secretary Nars, from the tourism sector, how do you look at it? Yung bang marami ba nawala ng trabaho?
Well, I hope that the Friday data will show exactly how many, but just from observations, Marco Polo Hotel in Davao was closed, the Mansion Hotel, the oldest hotel in Iloilo, has closed, and I foresee many other accommodation units biting the bullet and closing down, because without clients, their overheads are just so high they cannot maintain. No? So that's just the accommodation sector of the tourism industry. Then you have a lot of MSMEs, and these are the travel agents, tour operators, tour transport operators. Madami dyan, no? As mentioned earlier, tourism employs about 5.4 million people. And I would suspect many of these small and medium-sized agencies will have difficulty maintaining their employees.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cedric?
Sir, morning, sir. Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Morning po, sirs and ma'ams. Follow-up question lang po kay GM Monreal, sir.
Sandali, tawag kita.
Apo.
Yes, please, GM. May tanong
ba? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Morning po, Cedric Casili from GMA, sir. Sir, update lang po dun sa may mga stranded passengers na po kahapon due to canceled flights daw na sabi hindi daw sila na-inform. I believe parang Bacolod tsaka CDO daw po yung flights. Hingi lang po kami na update, sir.
Well, unang-una, I think you're referring to the canceled flight by Cebu Pacific. That in the afternoon, I think Cebu Pacific operated that flight. Indeed there were passengers that were left behind. Probably the best person to give you an update is Cebu Pacific. But as reported last night, there were still several passengers that were left out, and I think based on the report, Cebu Pacific took over and handled them. That's the report that I gathered. They have a flight again today to Jensan. I hope and I pray that these left behind passengers will be accommodated on this flight this morning.
Mhm.
Sir, meron daw po kayong naging announcement, sir, na just to confirm, sir, may announcement ako, sir, na yung mga airlines po should not be announcing agad-agad na yung mga advanced operations po nila, sir, so as not to, sir, cause yung mga ganitong incident po.
Hindi po yata galing sa MIA. Anong particular advisory po?
Sir, I'm reading this news article lang po, quoting you, and then it says na in a meeting daw, you advised airline representatives to refrain from announcing that they are going to operate this month so that the passengers will not go to the airport terminal, sir.
There were several meetings that were held. I cannot particularly recall, but taking it from what you have just read, I think it's just proper that the airlines should just not make unilateral decision that they're flying without securing the necessary permits and other requirements, because at the end of the day, the passengers will be inconvenienced. Kawawa ho yung mga pasahero.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sir Melo, just one more question po. Forgive me, sirs, kung na-miss out ako kasi hindi po ako maka-access kanina. Pero para po doon sa passengers po na finally makakalipad, pwede po ba natin silang bigyan ng picture what to expect pag nasa loob sila ng aeroplano, yung spacing, yung mga ganun po, sir, please.
Maybe Bobby will be able because he's the one representing the local carriers.
Yes, sir. Salamat po.
Attorney Bobby Lim will be able to.
Sir Bobby, thank you, sir.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you, Bobby. Paano question sa aeroplano?
Yes. So during this initial period, the airlines project that demand is still going to be low, and therefore the seating arrangements inside the aircraft will permit generous spread out of the passengers now. So that's and that is really following what the ICAO has prescribed, which is to observe spacing arrangements to the extent possible. That's how the airlines are going to approach the seating arrangement inside the aircraft.
Okay. All right. May meeting pa si Secretary Nars. Secretary Nars, kung titingnan mo yung bolang kristal sa larangan ng aviation at turismo, ano po? Bukasan natin.
Squid balls. Tigatlo siguro.
Yes, please.
My crystal ball is broken. Melo, there has never been any precedent of this type of crisis. We cannot model it on anything because it's unprecedented. So it's just really, your guess is as good as mine as far as this pandemic is concerned. So, as Bobby said, IATA has forecasted that airlines, the aviation industry will be able to fully recover in 2023. And I think that's a very safe projection. So along with that will be leisure travel. Okay?
Okay.
So that's a pretty long time for people to wait around and for people to have no jobs, no? So we are facing very difficult economic times ahead.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, pero may nag-circulate na video kagabi, Secretary Nars. Pati raw yung Victoria Court yata, magsasarado. So, parang may impact talaga, no? If motels will have to close, then marami rin taong apektado, no? Unprecedented talaga. I don't know how you would react to that. But anyway, kung ang isang hotel na 5-star, wala nang buffet, paano sila kikita? Secretary Nars.
Well, some restaurants will have seating arrangements where there is an acrylic divider so that the social distancing protocol is observed, no? But that means that the capacity of the restaurant will be at 50% or even maybe less, no? Depending on the space. So I think food costs will go up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
And
natural consequence.
many of the restaurants of the hotels will have to be converted to take out.
Okay. All right. Pats, thank you very much, Secretary Nars. May meeting ka pa ng 10 o'clock na delay ka na namin. Thank you. Pero
Thank
si
you.
M at si Bobby will stay with us. Okay, salamat po. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Wish you the best. Okay. Pat Santos, may tanong ka sa ating mga nalalabing panauhin. Go ahead. Yes, Pat. Go, go, go. Naka-mute ka. Paki-unmute mo na, kapatid. Yan, good. I can hear you now. Pat? Baka naka-switch off pa. Unmute mo muna, kapatid. Para sigurado.
Yeah.
Yan. Oh, sige, go ahead.
Okay. At tanong ko lang ganito
Kanino?
Doon sa mga frontliner ng airport kay GM siguro or even
GM, kay Bobby.
kay Sir Bobby, kay whoever tumutop yun, sir. Ito po yung sinabi yung yung guidelines po ba sa senior citizen at saka may underlying sickness, pasasakayin po ba yun sa plane? Ano po ba ang restriction doon sa at saka yung mga condition para ma-board sila sa
Yan. Coming from the citizen himself.
Hindi, pareho tayo.
GM, ano po ang rule natin tungkol sa mga senior? Go ahead. Oops, sandali po. Okay, okay po, yan.
Meron na pong volume.
Meron na po, okay na.
Okay. Hindi ko sa pinapasa po sa airlines ang protocol na papatupad. Meron pong established protocols. And I'm sure they will be guided accordingly on how to handle this situation. Kami po ang operator ng terminal, but sa pagtatanggap po ng mga pasahero ay nasa airline po yun. So may mga panuntunan na pinalabas po ang IATF. Basically, that is basically supposed to be followed. I'm sure there will also be exceptions to the rule. So that will be depend on the situation. And sundan na lang po natin.
Okay. Ini-imagine ko kasi meron akong ticket na nirebook, senior na ako. Di i-refund ko na lang.
Hindi naman po, Melo, siguro.
Okay.
Make sure there will be some exemptions. And probably if your travel is legitimate,
yes.
Uuwi ka sa probinsya mo na doon ka talaga nakatira, siguro naman po pwedeng i-consider yun. I'm not saying that that is the rule, but it could be addressed as exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, okay. Bobby, from your end, teka, kay Bobby muna, sa industriya, ilang porsyento ng mga pasahero nyo ang senior citizens in the first place?
Offhand, Melo, I don't have that number. But in response to the question of Pat, under the omnibus rules, pag GCQ na, the general rule is you can travel to access essential services.
Essential, okay.
And access work. Ngayon, pag tinignan mo naman yung interzonal, they do not allow leisure travel. But the general rule again for GCQ is if you're below 21, you're 60, you have pre-existing comorbidities or sickness, you should not be allowed. So, ang gagawin ng airline is at point of sale, i-encourage na namin ngayon online sale. When you book, to minimize, yung tinatawag na the new way of doing things is to minimize contact. So we would be encouraging online sales. There will be a question there on what is the purpose of your trip, your profile. Obviously, we would have obtained that in terms of age, any pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
Para malaman lang, it's based on an honest declaration so that the airlines can be guided. And of course, when you check in, similar questions can be posed to you. Now, this is following the omnibus guidelines of IATF. And this is the way we intend to carry it out.
Okay. All right. Pat, may follow-up?
Okay na, okay na. Okay na.
Okay na? Kay Air Traveler tayo. May tanong pa rin si Air Traveler. Air Traveler, where are you? Come in.
Yes,
Go ahead.
hi. Yes, I have another question for Bob.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Actually, I've been wondering about this a long time ago. Or not really a long time, maybe a few months ago since this COVID crisis took place. And it's concerning the future of the fleet preferences of airlines. Because like with Cebu Pacific, you have 16 orders of A330-900 NEOs with 460 seats. I mean, that's what's being talked about right now, 460 seats, 16 of them. And considering that this situation, I mean, we don't know how it will go on the next 5 years, next 10 years. What do you think will happen to these massive orders of wide body fleets like the A330-900neo? Because I think the airline got it. I think one of the reasons the airline got it is to address the decongestion on the airport. So instead of mounting 2 flights, which will again get another slot, which will require another slot, they can all get all passengers in one A330-900neo. But with this happening, what do you think will be the future of fleet preferences of the airlines, both for the full service airline like PAL and the low cost carriers?
Okay. Yes, Bobby?
Well,
yes.
First of all, the best party to answer that question, of course, would be the individual carriers. No? They have their own commercial strategies on how to move forward, given that NAIA airport, from being over-congested, will be underused. So when you look at it, this is really the great opportunity for the Philippines to catch up with infrastructure. Remember, our airport facilities are sorely lacking in capacity before the COVID. And that is why the airport development is so much an integral part of the build program of the government. But now it is going to be underutilized for a couple of months and maybe years. And ultimately, the one driving all of this is consumer demand. The quicker consumer demand comes, the better for the airline, for the airports, and for the economy. Okay. So if consumer demand is not going to be around, the airlines will have to adjust in terms of the capacity they introduce to the market. No? If it means using more A320s, then that will be a commercial decision made by the airlines. If it makes sense to have more connecting trips for airlines, then they will also consider that. So lahat yan pinag-aaralan pa ngayon kasi hindi talaga ma-predict eh. There's so much uncertainty. If you are the commercial airlines, you wouldn't know how to really move your assets. But bottom line, the airlines just want to start. You know, they have a duty to serve the Philippine Islands, connect people, connect communities. Okay. And it's also necessary for them to survive, no, as a business enterprise.
Yeah. Bobby, please stand by. Bigyan muna natin ng pagkakataon si GM. He has another meeting to attend to. Ano po ang mensahe ninyo, GM? GM Ed? Para sa ating mga kasama? Please go ahead.
Meaning the public or the state?
The public and the industry, yes.
Well, definitely, marami ho tayong adjustments na ipapatupad. Adjustment that may not favor some, but eventually it will benefit the rest or the majority. Unang-una ho, hinihiling ko as what I mentioned earlier. Let's instill discipline. Discipline in the sense that we follow the protocol. Pag sinabing hindi pa pwede, wag na ho natin suwayin. Wag na ho natin hindi sundan. Kasi at the end of the day, when we arrest this COVID by at least implementing proper social distancing and the transmission, we will all win. Wag na ho matigas ang ulo. Pag sinabi ho na sumunod tayo sa pila, sumunod ho tayo. To the carriers, I am getting much support as well. We are always talking for the benefit of the passengers. Ang huli ko lang hong may papangako o may request is sana bago magdesisyon ng mga airlines ay makipag-usap at makipag-ugnayan sa authorities, not only MIA, but CAP, who are also handling regional airports, so that at the end of the day, hindi yung pagdating ng mga pasero sa kanilang mga final destinations ay pababalikin o magkakaroon ng inconvenience. So basically, let's work as a team. Usap-usap tayo. At the end of the day, it's all the benefit for everybody. So yun lang po.
Okay, thank you very much, GM. Mabalos tabi sa pag-participar mo sa satuyang pag-iribanan mo niyan. Thank you.
Kahit kaming problema, just mabalos po.
Mabalos po. Thank you.
Melo, may I just give a comment to that, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
I just want to make it clear that the airlines have diligently followed all regulations. We are in close coordination with the airport authorities. All the actions that have been taken by the airlines in preparation for the resumption of the flights, such as the submission of all our routes and flight network, were given early so that it can be submitted to the civil aviation authorities that approves it, and for it to be submitted to the IATF so that they can also approve it. So our understanding of the omnibus rules is that when you have a GCQ to GCQ condition, you may start to prepare and resume your flights.
Okay.
I think the big mystery here really is the coordination between IATF, airport authorities, and the LGUs, because that really is that would take into account the local requirements of the LGUs. No, it is their political decision that is important and that has to be respected. And of course, each of the LGUs will have to balance public health concerns that they have, because as I understand it, they do not have enough or adequate public health infrastructures, versus the need of their communities to be connected to the Philippine economy,
Okay.
trade and commerce to continue.
Okay.
So for us, the airlines, we are just here to perform our role to connect the islands. I think the sooner we can fly, the sooner we can normalize trade and commerce for the provinces and cities throughout the country.
Okay. Yeah. GM, may pahabol po kayo? Would you have anything to say about the coordination between the IATF, airport authorities, and the LGUs?
I think the list of those accredited local destination has been out already. It's just a matter of coordinating the airlines to coordinate with CAP, and that's it. We will be able to, as far as me, I'm just speaking on behalf of MIAA. Once the airline has submitted to us their proposed schedules, we will vet it, and we will definitely approve when space is available. And I'm sure there are a lot of space and slots that will be availed by the airlines. So kami sa NAIA, wala kaming problema. It's just a matter of, I think, ironing out what are the required protocols sa destination. Pag hindi pa pwede, pag sinabi ng local destination na hindi pa sila ready, let's not push it. Let's wait until the area is able to accept these passengers going their way.
One thing I heard from Mayor Noel Rosal of Legazpi City is they are prepared to welcome domestic flights. Sa Legazpi.
Parang may pagbabago po dyan. Ang alam ko kahapon, parang may pagbabago. I'm not too sure. kung ano yung pagbabago, but there was an information that I received. Ang bukas lang ho so far, ang pagkakalam po Naga, yan ang merong commitment po yata. But I may be wrong, but that was the information I gathered yesterday.
Anyway, sige po, let me do the follow-up. Thank you very much, GM. I know you still have another meeting. Pero
Yeah,
si Bobby
salamat po.
will remain. Si Bobby will remain to answer other questions from the media. Thank you very much. Thank you, GM. May tanong si Cedric Castillo. Cedric, para kay Bobby.
Sir, opo. Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Opo. Yes, sir. Morning again, sir. Sir, again, sir, sorry, baka na-discuss sa kayo na. Pero sir, hingi lang ako, sir, ng meron ba kayong mga projections sa ngayon po in terms of layoffs? Kasi sir, I heard meron na isang airline doon na parang may nag-o-offer na ng voluntary separation doon sa mga medyo matagal na nilang empleyado like pilots, gano'n. Tapos sir, in terms of airfare naman po, meron ba nakikita tayo na increase in the next few months and up to what rate po yung increase na ito kung meron man, sir? Thank you, sir.
Bobby?
Yung layoff of employees of airlines, no? Even before the COVID, Philippine Airlines already offered a early retirement program. So that program was in place already, no?
Yeah.
So I think that should be clarified. Now, as I've said, Cedric, the airlines have kept the regular employees intact as of today. No, but to the best of my information, I'm not aware of any change to the policy of the airlines. They have kept their employees intact. Insofar as airfares are concerned, I had asked Cebu Pacific questions that have been frequently raised. No? Will there still be piso fares in the future? Ang sagot ng Cebu Pacific, it depends on the market. If market demand will come, then they will have a basis to promote piso fares, because the philosophy of piso fares is buy early and you'll be able to get cheap seat, no? to travel wherever you're going. So hindi nito rule out yan.
Okay.
So far as increase in fares, again, it depends on the business model of the future. No? If the seating capacity will be cut by 50%, then that is a new model, and the airlines will not be able to afford operating with 50% empty seats.
Okay. Very good. Cedric, may dagdag ka pa?
Sir, follow-up lang po, sir. Yung sa city capacity, sir, ngayon po, wala pa talaga na-establish na parang meron na rin yatang guidelines, sir, ano? Pero ano po ang norm na kayo sa city capacity?
Well, the DOTR recognizes the recommendations and standards coming out from the ICAO and IATA. And in fact, ICAO recently came up with a guideline which said that when occupancy allows it, then you can make your seating arrangements flexible. No? So they leave it to the airline depending on the availability of seats. So they're not saying that you should have an empty seat between two passengers. It is a flexible thing. And the reason for that is, as I've explained earlier, you have layers of biosecurity from the time you get off your car, you enter the airport. You know, you're subjected to all types of scrutiny, thermal, you're wearing masks, you're observing social distances. Until you reach the aircraft, you're not supposed to move around, you're just supposed to sit. The boarding protocols and procedures are designed to minimize interaction and traffic in the corridor. The food to be served is simplified now and served in meal packages. The HEPA filters inside the aircraft mimic the cleanliness of an operating room in a hospital. The airflow is from top to bottom. There is infusion of clean air, and all of that air that moves is filtered through HEPA filters, which captures 99.9% of any bacteria or virus inside the aircraft. So all of this, plus the general culture of safety that is inherent in aviation, should assure the traveling public that it is relatively safe. Certainly a lot safer than maybe the trains or even the buses, no? Because nga of technology, the processes, procedures, and the culture of safety in the aviation
Okay.
industry.
All right.
Pero, sorry sir, yung seating po sir, it's not as established as say yung mga bus halimbawa, di ba na
Yes,
hindi ganun po sa eroplano, hindi as established as that.
yes.
Hindi
So,
magkakaroon ng reconfiguration ng mga upuan sa aeroplano. Bobby.
So the reconfiguration, there are, for example, some recommendations na maglagay ng acrylic dividers between seats, no?
Uh-huh.
But we feel that is a difficult technical recommendation because, first of all, kailangan mo ng may impact yan on safety when you have those movable
Precisely.
items on the seats.
Precisely.
And they may impede movement in case of an emergency.
Of course.
And then you'll have to examine what kind of material is going to be used. Yun ang mga inherent technical issues when you fly. When you fly in the sky, the engineering controls are so much more detailed
Complicated.
and
Yes.
complicated.
Yeah.
Because flying is inherently different from other modes of transport like the sea and by land.
Okay. All right.
Sir, thank you sir.
Thank you. May tanong yata yung ating kasamang si Juvie de Guzman. Juvie, asan ka na? Please come in. Sige, go ahead. Paki-unmute mo muna. All right, go ahead with your question. Oops. Hindi makuha. Baka. Yan. One more time, Juvie. Juvie, I could see you but I could not hear you. Good. Sige, try.
Hello.
Yan. Sa wakas.
Yan. Good morning po sa inyong lahat. Gusto ko lang pong malaman, Sir Bobby, na what if ang isang traveler galing sa Texas, kasi talagang magta-travel siya local eh. Sabi niya, okay naman daw yung yung health nila, check up from Texas. Pag dumating daw ba ng eroplano, meron pa daw bang another check up at saka yung pagbaba nila, another check up?
Check up for what again?
For yung COVID-free ba sila, ganon? Kasi sa kanila daw, sa Texas, okay na sila eh. Pero meron daw nagsabing passenger dyan, nakasama din nila, na pagdating daw ng pagbaba daw, pag landing daw, may another check-up na binigay na naman. So, familiar po ba kayo dyan?
Okay. May screening ulit. Yes. Go ahead, Bobby.
Screening ulit, oo.
Yes. The policy in the Philippines is that you only have, as of now, they limited incoming international passengers to 400 per day. And the reason for this is it is the ability of the Department of Health, Bureau of Quarantine, to take the tests for all of these 400 passengers. No? Now, earlier, I think it was discussed by GM Monreal that from a PCR test, they are now using the rapid test, no? Or a combination of both.
Yes.
So I understand that if the passenger will take his own test from the point of origin, from an accredited hospital or clinic, then that test, the test result, will be deemed acceptable when you arrive in the Philippines, depending on the hospital, depending on when you took the test, right? I think it serves everybody. It's beneficial to everybody. You are unburdening the Department of Health, no, in terms of doing the test. You are facilitating the process of testing, and it is beneficial to the customer because you don't need to wait for your turn to be tested again. We have I have shared with the civil aviation authorities that these protocols are adopted in foreign countries. No? For example, between Korea and China, they have adopted a protocol where the Korean passenger can take his COVID test before, in his point of departure, point of origin, and present the results of those tests upon arrival in China. So I think it's doable. It's a question of maybe ascertaining lang when the test was conducted, the results of the test, and the reliability of the clinic or hospital that did it.
Okay. Maliwanag. May follow-up, Juby? Juby? Oops. Paki-unmute mo muna ulit.
Okay.
Good. Okay, go ahead. Teka. Paki-on mo muna.
Yan.
Go ahead. Sige.
Okay, Sir Bobby, sorry.
Yeah.
Gusto ko lang pong malaman kung yung paglanding nila ng Pilipinas ay wala na silang magiging abala. Dire-diretso na ba sila sa bahay after showing their medical check-up?
Hindi yun ang protocol, Juby.
So they have to stop again.
Meron pang testing na gagawin. Pasiguro lang. Ano ko naman dito sa atin, mabuti rin sigurado.
Opo.
Saka yung,
Kasi hindran sa kanila yun eh.
natural na yun. Yung safety ng karamihan ang priority. Okay? It may be inconvenience to your friends, pero it is convenience to almost everyone. But anyway, siguro we'd like to end our forum today. Bobby, take all the time.
Thank you.
Ano yung wish ninyo from industry? You know, we're sad CAAP is nowhere to be found, but we invited them to be with us today. Probably they're too busy. They didn't even respond to our letter, so it's okay. No problem. So what is it that you want from government, from the general public, for them to understand your predicament, if there is any? Please go ahead, Bobby.
Well, from the government, we would request that you please include us in the stimuli program. We badly need your financial support so that we can address the liquidity problem that we are currently facing. The liquidity problem is brought about by not flying for 2.5 months. It means we don't have any cash to pay for our fixed costs and other current liabilities. Ang hinihingi naman namin, hindi handouts. We're asking for credit guarantees of existing loans so that the loans of these private banks can be opened up to us. They are to be repaid. We are also asking government to provide us credit facilities so that we can borrow money and strengthen our ability moving forward as a trading concern. Again, these are to be repaid by the airlines. No? These are not handouts. And then we have also asked government for a waiver of navigational charges for 6 months. Yon waiver yon, no? That's what we are asking for. That's about 500 million pesos a month. That will go a long way in saving our cash. From the government too, we hope that we can have a unified policy that will guide the LGUs on how they will accept domestic passengers. I think a more coordinated approach from the government agencies and from the airlines would allow a robust return of domestic flight in the Philippines so that trade and commerce can be restored. And to the riding public, rest assured that in aviation, where we have a strong culture of safety, where we embrace technology and strict rules to make your flight safe, clean, would bring confidence on your part to start flying again. You may have to fly with a mask on, like Batman, but rest assured, it will make you safe not only for yourself, but
Yes.
for your co-passengers, no? So I think this is the new normal that we have, and I believe the riding public is now more educated on the nature of this invisible foe. We are better equipped mentally, physically on how to manage and deal with it. We should not let it stop us from continuing uh, living, no, as normal as possible and enjoy life
Okay.
and be productive.
All right. Thank you very much, Bobby, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melo, for inviting me. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Let me end our discussions today with 3 quotes. Ang sabi po ni Mark Twain ay ganito: "The air up there in the clouds is very pure and fine, bracing and delicious. And why shouldn't it be? It is the same. The angels breathe." Sabi naman ni Neil Armstrong, "Pilots take no special joy in walking as pilots like flying." And then, sabi ni Jerry Crawford, "To most people, the sky is the limit. To those who love aviation, the sky is home." Let me say thank you to everyone who took time out to be with us. It's indeed a pleasure to have you with us, and we will have more topics na pag-uusapan ano yung impact ng COVID-19 sa iba't ibang industriya. Doon sa ating tapatan sa Aristocrat, pag-uusapan natin ang bisikleta. Yan. We will talk about bicycles in Metro Manila. Thank you very much. God bless us all, and have a nice day, and keep safe. Thank you.